Welcome, fellow Stardust, and thank you for joining me for this surprise stream. Now, this wasn't on my September schedule, but when trying to get my guest, Anthony of Fever Dreamland Theater, to get on some of the projects that I've been working on or about to be working on, our schedules just weren't aligning. So we thought, why not just do a quick little stream? So, of course, we picked our topic as, the top three creature designs, and we could have easily have done top 20, but we didn't want to stay here all night, so we just did top 3. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Anthony of Fever Dreamland Theater. Thank you again, Anthony, for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. I am super happy to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
Yes, it's always an honor. And so, while we give some folks some time to trickle on in here into the chat before we get into our top 3, what movie have you seen lately that you absolutely loved or disliked or just want to, throw a word out about?
Okay, well, I'm gonna actually geek out about the movie I was just talking to you about.
Yes.
I'm flipping through Tubi, because it's free, and I find some classic movie from the '70s, or a cult classic, I should say, called The Evil. And I'm not sure if anybody's heard of it. And I was just so taken by this movie that I was just like, oh man, I want to talk about this. It's fun. It stars Richard Crenna, who was most people will know him from the Rambo movies, but it's sort of, I don't want to spoil too much because it feels like it's a bit of an unknown movie. But it was just a lot of fun. It's a bit of like a haunted house mixed with some paranormal, supernatural stuff, and it has like a nice edge to it. I'm a fan.
Yes. Awesome. Very cool. I'll have to check that out. Sounds
Yeah.
awesome. Looking forward to what you got coming about that. So sounds cool. Well, lately for me, I actually just today rewatched for a second time Sissy from Netflix, which is a really fun one. That was from 2222, where basically this influencer chick reconnects with her friends, and it's got some spooky music and weird vibes going on, and you're like, what's happening? Also, I don't want to give away too much, but the ending is just absolute perfection, and it's really fun. It's a fun slasher, doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's also relatable and very real, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it.
Is it more of like
So,
a
yeah.
horror comedy, or like just a straight slasher, would you say?
Definitely slasher comedy. Yeah,
Okay,
horror
all right,
comedy.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But, they try to lean more towards the spooky atmosphere, but the music and some of the lines, you just can't help that they're also just trying to be over the top silly
Yeah.
too. But they
Yeah.
balance it pretty well.
Very cool.
It's fun. Yes, yes. All right. So let me come over here to the chat real quick and say hello to some folks. We got D-Man. What is up, my man? How are you? How are you? Two of the best and unique creators on YouTube. Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. What's up, Katie? Hello, hello. I appreciate you for being here. What is up? And Neil's in the house. Neon Black Reviews. Hello, hello. Yes, yes. And
So many
what's up?
friendly faces. Wait,
Yes.
who let
It's
this?
the fam. What's up, Jonathan? How you doing? Man of the movies. This is part of the Cinema Squad, and I don't think I mentioned this just yet, y'all. So the reason why we actually chose today is because every Thursday this month, he and the Cinema Squad have been doing live streams on a new Star Wars show, doing recaps. So definitely check that out. I have the link for that in the description, as well as the link for Anthony's channel. So definitely check all that out. All right. But a lot of these people, like we just said, are family, but some people might not be chiming in the chat. So in case you're not chiming in and you're not familiar with Anthony, there you go. All right. Hello, hello. Okay. So before we get into our top 3, let's go ahead and talk about our honorable mentions. And I'll let you go first. Mention one of your honorable mentions.
Sure. I am gonna throw one out there that I'm sort of surprised I didn't pick to put in my list, but it's the werewolf from American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
I absolutely love this. I think that transformation scene, and anybody who's seen this movie will know, was just painful, but
Yes.
it was just so impressive. I feel like that movie broke new ground, and then we get some different sort of but because we see just these moments where his hands are stretching, there's fur popping out, and then when he goes into full werewolf mode, it's just a thing of warped beauty, I would say. So that would be like one of my honorable mentions. That it almost made it on the list, but yeah, so honorable.
And you nailed it. It's like you could feel the pain. Like he just did so well with that transformation. You felt, how painful that actually
The
was.
actor's name was it Norton? I forget the actor's name, but he's sitting there reading or something and I can relate to this because I get migraines, and he's just like, Jesus Christ, and he just grabs his head, and that's sort of like how some of my migraines are, unfortunately. And but I don't turn into a werewolf or anything cool like that. But the pain, I could feel the pain. He did just such a good job selling it. But more in terms of for the purposes of this stream, just an amazing creature all around. I just love it. Yeah, old school, practical all the way. In that case.
Oh yeah. Yep. And it definitely worked, and it definitely still flies today. Like it still looks awesome and nasty and just beautiful today. So yes. And sorry, folks, I'm just looking around at my computer right now because I am attempting to share some photos, and it might not work, but just wanted to let you know why I look a bit distracted here. It may not happen, which is totally fine, but I'm just kind of giving it one last go here just to see what's up with that.
In the meantime, I can do a tap dance for everybody.
Sure. I mean, I think we would all actually love that.
I'm gonna bust out the
you had that in you. All right. For real quick. So my first honorable mention is going to be Brenda from 2006 Slither from James Gunn. I just quote this woman all the time because I love food. I just always be saying, I'm so hungry. I just love the image of her, and I feel bad for her, and the splitting of her is just awesome every single time. And she's just almost as tall as the barn when everybody finds her, the police and Elizabeth Banks' character, they see her and they recognize her because it's a small town. Everybody's kind of like family there, and they're just like, what the hell has happened? She has become the womb/incubator for this alien that has come down onto Earth. And she's just festering with all these slugs that eventually burst out of her, and I just love it every time.
And it's sort of ironic because you're talking about food, and then we get this big giant massive hideous beast. But it's in terms of effects, it's just, again, it looks, I was talking about American Werewolf in London, but that looks painful too. There's just something about, I think it's because it's the human, the flesh stretching that much, and this is beyond anything that that we've ever seen before. It's like I don't even think that skin can do that, but okay,
right.
It's awesome.
It's funny because James Gunn was saying that he was working with the design team, and they were making it realistic, like sagging and more how it would probably be, and he's like, no, I want it to be round and bouncy, keep making it better like how I want it to be. Stop making it, realistic like.
Okay. Think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Exactly. Just ridiculous over the top,
Great.
Yes. All right, let me catch up with the chat here real quick. All right. All right, people talking amongst themselves. I love it. John says the prosthetic for American Werewolf in London changed the game. It was the reason the Oscar added that specific category. Rick Baker would then go on to win the most awards in that category. I'm sure. Awesome. Yeah, very cool.
Thank you, John.
Hell yeah. What is up, Dice? Hello. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you got honorable mentions, y'all, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Once we get into our top 3, I'll go ahead and ask for your number 3 creature design. So go ahead and throw your honorable mentions in there if you got them. All right. At Universal, there is a stage show called The Horror Makeup Show. It's a comedy semi-improv show, but they have the mechanisms that created the effects in American Werewolf in London. Hell yeah, that sounds awesome. That would be really freaking cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a cool and disturbing, horrifying departure from earlier films like The Werewolf Man or The Wolf Man. Beyond transformation, looking at it at its eyes and teeth always sends a chill down my spine, says Deep Movie Man. Yes, it was awesome.
That's another one,
Very.
and I know you're gonna want to move on, but that's another movie I think I saw.
No.
When I was arguably too young. It freaked me out, but man, I just love it. And yeah, like D-Man's mentioning, it was, yeah, everything about it, the teeth, the eyes, it just sends chills down your spine. There's a lot of other
Yes.
violent stuff in that movie too. Like it's there's some gore in there. It's a good watch show if you're a horror fan.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right. What's another one of your honorable mentions?
All right, so let's see. I think my other, and I have like a million honorable mentions, but for the purposes
Right.
for the purpose of our stream and keeping with the theme of, like, you know, just sort of staying gross, I want to go with the 80s version of The Blob. I think that's a good match for your, and
Yes.
we could ship them, right? Is that what the kids say? They ship them, you know, we could ship with your last pick, you know, from Slither. Get The Blob. This creature, it's like, for a thing that's a big pink jello blob, it was just amazing looking, the way it absorbs people, and you could see them in there. And again, you get this sense of people really suffering, you know, and feeling the pain, and then just
Yes.
slowly evaporating inside this big, you know, gelatinous monstrosity, right? But so yeah, that would be another one of my runners up, would be that creature from
Yeah, that would definitely be an honorable mention for me if it was on my list, or if we had like a top 20 or 30 list. Like, yes, The Blob
There's
was
the original black and
close.
white movie too. That's good for its
Yeah.
time. You know, and there's like a certain
Right.
charm to that. I always fall back to that. But, man,
Yes.
they knocked it out of the park. It felt a lot more threatening and almost like nasty in the 80s version, I would say. So yeah,
Yes.
that's my runner up. No, or another one of my
Awesome.
runner up, I would say.
Yes. For me, mine would be the behemoth from The Mist. Although we only get to see a tiny bit of it at the end, it's still one of the most powerful and memorable moments of that movie.
Yeah.
And yes, I just love how massive it was. And it's got its own ecosystem, birds flying around it, animals living on it, 300 feet tall, and likely doesn't even like notice you or recognize that you even exist, you know? And yeah, and it's towards the end of the film where also you have one of the most tragic endings, you know? So I just loved that thing because you can't really see where its head is either necessarily. It's where it starts, where it ends, or what. It's recognizable but not. So yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and you're right. It comes in at the end. It feels like it doesn't even see the people. So it's like it takes an already bleak situation and makes it even worse. I mean, that's what sort of leads them to the decision, or at least or lead them to the decision to go the way that he goes. And, spoiler alert. But yeah, it's like the people are just bugs, and it just made everything seem like hopeless. Like we're done here. We're done. We're just gonna get squished, or we're gonna get eaten, or something, or torn apart. But what an impressive, a great pick, and really impressive creature.
Yes.
There was some other good creature work in that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely tried to. They were like the designers on that one didn't want to create anything that looked like anything people had already seen before. So they had been working actually for decades on all those designs for so long. So, and it definitely showed because they were definitely unique.
And I think there's I'm not as familiar with Dark Tower and the other Stephen King stories, but from what I've read online too, I think that there's ties and Easter eggs and relations and ties to that. I'm not up on it as much as I should be. So, but yeah, so I think that there's some things in there too.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Your last honorable mention.
All right. We are going to stay with the 80s for just one more time, and I'm going to mention, I believe the designer was Chris Wallace. the Fly, or Brundlefly to be more specific,
Yes,
would be my
Brundlefly.
honorable mention. This thing, I mean, obviously we see Seth go through again. We see anybody who's seen The Fly. He goes through this grueling transformation throughout the whole movie, and the payoff is when he becomes the full Brundlefly. He rips his jaw off at one point. I'm sorry, no, the
Yeah.
Gina Davis's character rips his jaw off at one point. He's just a full on beast, and it's amazing. Again, it's practical effects. I'm a geek when it comes to that stuff. I'm a big fan when it comes to the old school practical effects. It really feels like they were hitting their prime in the 80s with that. And I just wonder if, because I know that it fell off a little bit as CGI started coming into the picture. I just wonder how, as a side note, I wonder how like what practical effects would look like nowadays if they just continued along that path. But like, just to get back to The Fly, yeah, just truly amazing. It could, like, on another day, it might just be in my top 3.
Yep, definitely. Like any list on any day can always be different for me. You know, it's always
true. That's
ever changing.
But it makes for fun discussion either way.
But to go back to what you said, if they made a Fly today only using practicals like they did back then, I feel like they would be pretty equal, like as far as you know, us loving them and them being believable, because it was just so spot on, you know.
And I'm cool with even enhancing it with like CGI or something like that. I'm actually fine with that too. And
same,
CGI can look awesome too. To be fair, it can look awesome. You know, it has its time as well.
Agreed. All right, let's see. And my last honorable mention is the splinter fungus in Splinter. I just love those spikes, and you know, it turns into a bunch of not different things, but it has just different shapes because it's taking on different body parts, putting body parts together, controlling people who are dead, you know, because it's kind of not necessarily taking control of your brain, but just taking control of your nervous system, which is really cool and fun to think about happening, you know. So yeah, I love that movie. It's, you know, one location mostly, and you see a cool character arc with a couple of the characters. But yeah, that little nasty fungus. Ugh. And then like that one dude, he gets, you know, just his finger pricked, and it slowly starts to creep onto his arm, and it like starts to control his arm, and he doesn't have control of his arm anymore, so he has to chop it off. And that's just one of my, you know, worst fears, being in a situation where I can't make it to a hospital and I gotta chop off my own damn arm. And then to top it off, it's to hope that like a fungus doesn't take control of my whole body. So yeah.
It's an awful thought. Even in nature, I think that there's like parasites or something that go into all kinds of things, and they basically like control the like, I think a mantis can get parasites inside of it, and then it dies. So it's basically a zombie, and that's sort of what this movie does, except it's hideous. It's some serious body horror, and I mean another good pick.
Yep.
So many.
I'm trying to go. So in our top 3, we'll probably talk about them a little bit more in depth, a little bit longer. So don't feel like you're ranting or anything. These were just our honorable mentions. So feel free to go off on our next picks. All right. So we are going to start with number 3 and work up to our number 1 pick. But again, this was just so difficult to pick out, and this is just what we were feeling today. All right. So go ahead and start it off. What is your number 3?
All right. The movie is The Ritual from 2017, and the creature is Motor is the name, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But this thing, I haven't seen this movie in a couple of years, but this creature remains just sort of stuck in my brain. I can't get it out. There was just something very nightmarish about it, right? It's sort of like it was a mix of animal, human. It was just the stuff of nightmares. And we were talking a little bit before the stream about some of the mythology and stuff that went into the beast, where it was like the ill-gotten son of Loki, god of mischief. So I love that there's really interesting little influences going. I mean, there's these little interesting influences that went into the creation of the beast. But it's, let's see, Moder is part stag and part human corpse. It's like, it's funny because when I first saw it in the film, it from a distance it feels like it feels like a moose on steroids or something like that.
Right.
And then you see from different angles, it turns around and there's some creepy little eyes. That's another thing that I like about certain beasts that I was, when I was like trying to think, well, you asked me like, what are some of your favorite creatures? And I'm like, well, I have a lot of traditional 80s ones, but then I also like things like Moder, these more modern things where if you look at it from one angle, it looks horrible. If you look at it from another angle, it looks like a nightmare. If you look at it from, and that's what this beast, as it's running and it's fleeing and it's killing and it's chasing people, it just almost feels like it's just changing shape, and no matter what angle you look at it, it's terrible. So that's my number 3 pick, and yeah, I love it though. It's just a wonderful design.
I apologize to my viewers so much for not having these pictures, because this is definitely one of the ones where you just have to see it. Like he said, it's goat-like, elk-like, horse-like, and then its head is
a lot of likes.
Like two basically human bodies put together, almost upside down, with antlers coming out. And then having such a massive creature be so big with these tiny little beady eyes, it's just that much more creepy, and it presents itself to people however it wants to. So in order to manipulate whoever comes into its forest, it can shapeshift into whatever to manipulate people. And I love that superpower. And because it's the son of Loki, he's got some of the same magical abilities, like changing the weather or going from day to night or vice versa, and which is cool to see because you see that in the movie. So like we talked about too, this is actually an adaptation from a novel, and so they did kind of take some creative liberties from they deviated a bit from the novel, just a little bit, but yeah, it was just cool what they came up with visually, because it wasn't really described in the book. So yeah, the director just got to kind of come up with that with the designer, which is really cool.
And I think, I don't know if I had it in my notes, but was it digital, like when it was scenes where it was like far away, but then they went to practical, like for close-ups?
So yeah, it was mostly digital, but like the head was practical. So they had a person in there doing close stuff when the people were interacting with it, and then they would impose and blend in the practical with the big pieces. Yeah. Super freaking cool. Yeah. What else about Moder here? Yep. So yeah, he had a ancient cult following him, who he basically was allowing to live forever. So, he was trying to take away your pain and death out of your life so you could live forever. And it's just bad reasoning, like, oh, because I have this trauma, you want me to come join you so I could be happy for all of eternity. Like, that doesn't really, yeah, people think they want to be a vampire and stuff, because being a vampire is kind of sexy, not because I want to live forever necessarily, but then these people you see at the end of the film anyway kind of shrivel up once they get to a certain age, because you see Homeboy going in there in the barn burning up all the extra old people who were just kind of like corpses. So yeah, it was like, it's powerful and it can do all these things, but it was all for nothing. Like, for what? Like, it's all just for show, and you have nothing else to do but to live in this forest and capture people who you think need saving but don't, know? So yeah, fun creature. Loved it.
It's such a bleak movie. Good. So the creature fits perfectly. It really is a bit of a downer of a movie. Not in a bad way. It's a great movie. I'm a fan. But it's a bleak movie. So the creature fits.
Yeah. I mean, it's bleak, I think, depending on how you maybe look at it. Okay. Like, did the right people live? Or did the assholes die? Or like,
Whenever assholes die, that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah, I think when
beginning
I
is
go live,
definitely
I
bleak.
say things that I don't.
But the whole movie is bleak though, like because it is
Yeah,
a
that's
really
more what I meant.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
overall
Okay.
tone is it
Yeah.
opens on
Yeah.
a bleak note. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very true. All right. Well, my number three is from 2016's The Void, and it is also a creature that pops in at the very end, like the behemoth, and that is the Sarah creature, that is basically birthed out of this poor teenage girl at the very end. Um, and it's very Lovecraftian. It's very squid-like looking, and this poor, just tiny girl gives birth to this thing that it's like 3 to 4 times bigger than she is, and just has all these, nasty, slimy tentacles coming out of it with these huge ass dark eyes,
Yeah.
and it's just stomping around and gets shot in the face. But when it gets shot in that hole, even more tentacles just come out and start attacking you, and it's just so slimy.
Yeah.
It's interdimensional rather. The Void is an awesome movie, and basically she's birthed because one of the main characters, Dr. Powell, couldn't get over his daughter's death, and in his grieving somehow found this interdimensional world and figures out how to bring her back to life. And basically, these people in this hospital all get murdered because of it. And it's awesome. The ending is a
Fun stuff.
perfect ending, too.
It's a bit of a, if I remember correctly, there's like a little skull. There's like a skull on the creature, right?
It looks like maybe a skull. I could see like it's, just bulbous. It's like slimy and bulbous. Man, I am so sad I don't have these photos.
It's funny because it's possibly like one of the grossest ones. Well, we'll see because we're not done. We have a couple more picks, but right now I'd say it's gonna be for the grossest, and that's saying a lot.
Okay.
You had the big, large girl that you chose. I'm sorry. What was her name again?
Brenda. You gotta remember. Oh, so funny thing about Brenda though, I wanted to say that too, and I forgot. But she actually, was just friends with James Gunn in the filmmaking world, and he was like, "Hey, you want to be in this movie?" And she's like, "Yeah," without reading the script. And when she gets to set and she starts getting put the makeup on, she's like, "Oh, I guess I should have read the script before accepting to do this." But she's like, "Well, I trust him. Whatever."
Yeah.
But yeah, to not know that that's what you're gonna do. Yeah.
It's an awesome part. I mean, not everybody could say that. Well, Eddie Murphy was in a fat suit, but this was a different kind of fat suit, I would say.
Yes. Dice says, "I shall throw out Pumpkin." Yeah, I actually haven't seen that one just yet. I know I need to get on that, but I've seen the picture.
Yes. That's a great looking one too. Yeah.
Yes. D says, "I also loved Mimics in Edge of Tomorrow. I remember thinking the enemy were super soldiers, so seeing their initial reveal was wild, especially with their disturbing movements and killing." I haven't seen that one either. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that, but I like some of the when we were before we were going to do the stream, I was searching like different creatures and trying to refresh my memory. So I came across some of this stuff, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, I have to check this out," and stuff like that. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Very cool. Let's see here. Yes.
They talking amongst themselves.
Yes.
That's good.
Very
good. I think that was Stan Winston in the case of Pumpkinhead. Somebody brought up Pumpkinhead. I think that was like another Stan Winston creation, and he also worked on Aliens, if I remember correctly. So that's why I believe it's very similar look. If you've at least seen photos of Pumpkinhead, it was very similar to the Xenomorph look.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually for the Sarah creature in the Void, what's his name? Who did this? Kostansky, right? Yes, Kostansky and his buddy Gillespie directed The Void, and they were also on the art department on Suicide Squad. So they basically just brought some of those folks on over to The Void to do that.
Okay.
Yes, and it was very challenging. Like they said, they had a very difficult time on set. Days were long, and Things were rough, but people kept a positive attitude. But it was just always a struggle because of the effects and shooting and all that.
That's an effects
So,
heavy movie. Hey, what
oh
did you just as a
yes,
side note? What did there's some CGI in that movie? What did you think
oh yeah,
of? But
it
did you
all
think it
worked.
blended or it worked for them? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like especially that one dude, the dead guy who's like putting his head through the pole over and over again. He's just got this gaping hole that's
Ah,
like that big. I love that, and it looks
hey,
great. Like, oh,
we're horror
and the
fans.
thing
That's what
about
we're here for.
and then with the Sarah creature, I only even had 2 pictures of her because you can't really find a good picture of her or more than 2 online. Even if you're watching the movie, it's hard to capture it because they don't really show it too full on.
Yeah,
And I can't grab pictures from streaming websites because if I try on my computer, it just turns black. But yeah, so even then, I wouldn't have been able to show great pictures, but I had one pretty good close up and then an obscured long shot of her, but when you do see her, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. All right. So we both did number 3, right?
yes, we are on our number 2 picks, I believe. Moving along.
Awesome. Moving right along. Go ahead with yours.
So my number 2 pick is going to be as my printout is like a little rough looking. I believe the year was 1987. The movie is The Gate, and the creature is called. This one I don't think a lot of people are going to know, but it's called the Demon Lord. It's a serpent-like sort of stop motion creation from the movie The Gate. This thing is again the stuff of nightmares. I don't think that a lot of people. You guys may have to, if you Google it to check it out. It's the Demon Lord, The Gate, and then you guys come right back here and you watch it. But this thing, I believe it was created by, I want to say Randy Cook was the creator. He worked on this. He had a whole bunch of other movies that he worked on, like Ghostbusters and Fright Night. So he was a big time special effects guy. And The Gate is like a cult horror. It may still be on Tubi for people who are curious about it. A while back, I did a quickie top 10 list of like my favorite stop motion monsters, and this guy was on there. It's basically a very, very large serpent-like creature that has like like multiple limbs, and it's stop motion. I had to get some stop motion in here. I had
Yes.
to show some appreciation for the art form. So yeah, that would be my number 2 pick. Have you seen The Gate?
I have not. No.
Okay.
It's on
Well,
my
even if
list
you get
now,
a
though.
chance, if you could check out like some highlights or something like that, because there's some good special effects in there. Again, it's some old school practical effects, but there's some good stuff in there. But this beast comes in at the end. It scares the hell out of a child. It's a very 80s movie. It almost feels like if you, it almost feels a bit like the Goonies, but then it's like the Goonies if it was like a horror movie or something like that. Because there's a lot of screaming kids and stuff like that throughout the film. But we also
Sounds
get a lot
cool.
of zombie action and blood and gore and guts. I feel like it may have been PG or PG-13, but this is PG in the 80s when PG was very different. So but
Yeah.
yes, that would be my number one, my number 2 pick would be the creature from The Gate.
Perfect. Awesome. Definitely on my list. Definitely on my list. And I just reread what Dice wrote. An attractive ethereal vampire asks me to join them. I fall to see. Fail to see them. The downside there. And I hear you on that. Like I said, they're beautiful. They're seductive, and I get it. I get it. But I don't see myself following an elk-like creature in the woods just to live a long time with some other people who got lost in the woods, Not so fun. Not so fun. All right, let's see. Number 2 for me is going to be going right into that, The Ritual, Motor. Yeah, this movie is just so much fun. Let's see, what else did we not say about it?
Yeah, because this is one of my picks, and I got to talk about it first. So now you have to think of things to think about it. Go.
Yeah, what have we not said
I think that's
yet?
well, it's an awesome creature. I mean, what the heck? It is what it is. Right?
And I guess we could just talk about the story a little bit. But for me, at first, I didn't really. At first, I thought, he was, because they all have the dream in the cabin, and he's the only one that's like bleeding because he's gotten marked or he got injured by something. And at the end of the film, obviously uh they want him to join the cult, but I also just kind of thought it was also a form of punishment. I didn't really, I guess, realize at first that he was like being chosen because he was so hurt. I kind of thought he was being chosen because he was like quote unquote so bad, even though he wasn't bad in my eyes for what he did. He was just kind of a coward,
Yeah, yeah.
But then the creature, I guess, was just seeing the other folks as collateral, I guess, but it makes way more sense that he's like, thinking about it as far as like who's the most hurt or feeling the most pain, and that's going to be the person who I'm going to try to bring into my cult, which is what cults do. They prey on the weak, they prey on those who are likely to join something that makes them feel welcome and supported. So yeah, it took me a couple of watches to see it that way, so
Yeah.
that was cool to see.
We had a
I like when
cult in
stories evolve.
your other Void. We had a cult in that as well with the
Oh yeah.
triangles on their masks and stuff.
Yep.
So
It was a
it
cult.
blends really well. That whole thing with cults, it goes hand in hand with horror films.
Yeah, because it's so
It's
easy
horrible.
to slip in and out for some, or to have a loved one slip in and out to some shit,
Kool-Aid.
Okay, okay.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
this is just water. No, I'm just kidding. Mm, but yeah, Colt. So yeah, that was just a coincidence having two
cults.
movies.
Can't live with them. Can't
Yeah.
live without them.
And actually, all three of my movies are kind of culty, I guess, in a sense. But number one is kind of more alien-esque, but still pretty culty. That's interesting. Didn't even think about that till you said that.
Yeah, well, it's like a running thing. Like, I mean, I noticed with a lot of my picks, yeah, you get in sort of I get sort of like the 80s stuff. Motor was the only one that I think sort of, yeah, it doesn't quite fit that mold of stuff that I like. And again, I'll say like there's tons of awesome modern creatures and stuff. I guess I'm like an old timer, so I do prefer a lot of the. I find that some of the older stuff just goes right up to the top of my list, which will lead me to number one.
Yeah.
If anybody notices my background, that would be the outpost from the movie The Thing, which is my number one pick. The creature from The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, to be more specific, the remake from the 80s. Now, this creature has like multiple different like sort of transformations again that it goes through. That's another thing I guess we notice a lot with a lot of the picks that we had, that a lot of our creatures sort of have like this like different like they evolve as the movie goes on, right? There's different shapes and forms and stuff. That's definitely the case. That's definitely the case in this movie. I believe John Carpenter, when he was working with the designer, I have to look him up real quick. Rob Bottin. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, or Rob Bottin. He was telling him, I just don't want this to look like a guy in a suit. So Rob Bottin went and made these fantastic practical effects that it's like when you look at it, you're like, well, there's no way that can be a guy in a suit because there's 20 different arms and legs and things going every which way possible. So yeah, there's more I think more specifically, one of my favorite incarnations of the creature is early in the film. There's like a dog that gets transformed and its face opens up and it just sort of keeps opening and developing and evolving and changing, and tentacles are shooting out. It's hideous looking. The first time I didn't actually catch this movie. It's an 80s movie, but I actually didn't catch this one, so I don't have. It's not a nostalgia thing for me. I saw this one a little bit later in life, but I was still happy to see it.
Okay, I thought for sure you would have seen it because I knew you would pick this one. I know it's one of your favorites, so yeah, I totally thought.
Yeah, but this is one I saw a little bit later, like maybe like in my 20s or something like that, and I was like, whoa, man, where's this movie been my whole life? But yeah, that dog scene in the opening of the film, just to get back to it, there's like a dog that transforms. It ends up, there's a bunch of other dogs in the kettle. He ends up spraying them with some sort of like acid. So you could tell it's a creature that's just sort of constantly transforming and changing and trying to adapt to its environment. And just even that concept itself, I find fascinating. And then the fact that it's merging with humans and there's just distorted faces. It's just a legendary. I love it. I can't get enough of it. They did a prequel of The Thing, also called The Thing. I hate when movies do that. Why do we get a movie called Halloween? and then we just get another movie called Halloween, but it's a sequel. Like, and then we end up just calling the
I
movies by their
know.
dates. Which are I'm going up on like, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, they made a prequel, and I think this is a bit famous. Was that they originally had some great practical effects, even for the prequel, that were very much in line with the first movie, but then they ended up going in and replacing them with CGI, which unfortunately, again, it's all
Dang.
opinions. It just didn't look as good. That's all. Maybe some people like it. I don't want to say, oh, it didn't. It was whack. That's to me. I think it would. They from the footage that I've seen online, it would have been better to stick with the practical, and it would have been more in line with the original movie. But anyway,
think I
that's my
just
pick would be the thing.
I just
But
realized is that the thing behind you, the set of the thing? I
yes,
just realized that right
yeah,
now.
that's I believe
Okay.
Outpost 31. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
okay.
yeah. So I've
That's
been
funny.
dropping a hint since I.
I almost put it on the cover, but I didn't. You know, I had the pale guy on, or not the cover, but the thumbnail. And it was neither one of our picks, but he's just cool
That's okay.
looking.
Throw him in as a runner-up too, just to sort of.
Yeah, of course,
Pale
that
guy.
skin. Oh my
Pan
god,
Slavin.
yeah.
That's another wonderful movie too, with some great creature work too.
Yes,
To throw a
yes.
shout out for creature work,
Yes.
I think is excellent. Yeah.
But real quick on the thing, but yeah, creatures that just adapt to their environment and become stronger when making that adaptation is always super, super creepy. And yeah, being able to merge with any species and still have that kind of power and control. Yeah, always a good idea. Good for fun. Yes. Let's see. What did I say here? Like in Once Bitten, Lauren Hutton wants you to become a vampire and join. They're still on vampires. Where do I sign?
No,
I get it.
I mean, even on topic, like vampire movies have given us some great creatures and stuff as well. With like bat-like creatures, Ultra Fright Night. I know off the top of my head gave us some great creatures and stuff like that. So yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, they are sexy. I've been a vampire for, you know, my cosplay get-ups many of times because yes, I like the teeth and licking the teeth and all that. It's my jam. All right, so my number one. So I kind of dropped a little hint or whatever, and I have a runner-up, you know, that's in the same movie. And so that is going to be Slither again from 2008. And it is Grant, or people like to call it the Long One, which is just a gross name, even though it's like not necessarily gross. It just sounds gross because he is gross. But yes, this alien thing is basically 4 parts. It's the needle that infects Grant, and then it's Grant, you know, putting these slugs into poor Brenda, who becomes a big old balloon, and, you know, him as the host, and then the slugs, right? So it's this 4-part thing, and Grant, like you mentioned, you know, is evolving. He's human, gets infected, and then becomes... Yes. And then he just becomes this big old blob that eventually just starts basically sucking in humans and it's becoming one big blob, like Society, almost like that movie Society. And it's squid like and just slimy and disgusting. But yeah, his face, I just keep having in my brain, these pictures need to be here next time, right? Guys.
Going off
yes,
to the,
it's slimy teeth.
It almost looks like the troll face. Now that I'm thinking, have you ever seen the troll meme where if somebody's trolling somebody, you'll see the face with a little smile. But yeah, what was the actor's name again in that?
Yes, his name. I should have written it down, and
was
I
it
know
Rooker?
it, but
was it Michael?
Yes, Michael Rooker. Yes, yes.
Can you imagine like how uncomfortable that? Well, I guess the poor woman,
yeah.
Just because all of the prosthetics and stuff, it just feels like I don't know. I wouldn't want to go through it. Like I wonder how many pounds of makeup that guy.
Oh yeah, totally, definitely a lot. And let's see, who was it that was working on this set with him? Let's see, Todd Masters of Masters Effects, which is pretty well known company in the biz. And yeah, mostly it was practicals, so a lot of maneuvering and setting up and having to do all of that for sure. They were designing the monsters 5 months before shooting. And for those slugs that they had, there were 500 of those prosthetics made, although most of the ones that you see on screen are digitally done.
Okay.
And made out of thermal gel, which is what they use to make adult products with. And he's actually inspired, the designs and stuff were inspired by some Japanese comics, Junjo Ito. And his other inspirations were, of course, Basket Case, Return of the Living Dead. What's it called? What else?
You can see that. Now
The Fly, The Brood, The Thing,
the
even like
body
he was
horror.
paying homage to all of those movies.
Okay.
He even has like a McCready hardware shop, featured in the beginning of the film. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I didn't know, because what year was that? It was from 2000, early 2000s, right?
6. Yep.
Did you know there's a little after credits sequence? I saw it for the first time today on YouTube. I was like flipping around and I was
oh my gosh, have I seen it? I don't think I recall it.
Unless I'm mixing up movies. No, there's an after credit sequence, and I think it shows the spoiler alert, like the remains of the of Grant, I believe. Right? Was that his name, Grant? And a cat.
Grant.
Yeah, a cat comes along and starts licking it. We cut to black, and it's like a cat screeching sound. I was like, oh, look at that! I didn't know that.
That is a little familiar.
Okay, yeah. So that was.
But there isn't a sequel, unfortunately.
Right?
But there is an Easter egg in Guardians of the Galaxy where you see the slugs in this tank in one of these control rooms or whatever.
All right,
yeah, so that's cool and cute. But yeah, he never came back to the dark side. He just stayed over there and that action stuff. That's okay. It's great stuff. But
and now he's getting, I don't want to turn it into a comic book stream, but now he's going into DC, and you're just like, oh, you're never getting back to horror, are you, dude?
No, like, he found that money, and he's about to stay with that money.
He's hammering away at Superman right now. So yeah, good luck, Slither too.
Yeah, this was his debut too. Like, bro, if he'd done a part 2,
it did well, right?
It didn't do well in the box office, unfortunately. It just has a cult following now. But yeah, it was a flop, and it just was looked over because it was so unique. There wasn't really a lot of movies like this during that time, and it was hard to categorize when things like Saw and all that kind of stuff was coming out. And so
I was gonna say, what was the competition at the time? That's relative to, right? Like sometimes what's the competition? What's it going up against? Like in the case of The Thing, I was talking about that notoriously. That did not do well at the movies. Even critically, it was bashed apart. But I believe The Thing was going up against E.T., which was just a phenomenon at the time. I think it was 1982. So that was the competition. So you have this friendly little alien going up in the movie theater against this nightmare alien with all kinds of tentacles and crap popping out of it. We're gonna take the kids to the friendly movie. Is I guess what happened. Thank God nowadays we've gone past that and we could just enjoy all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sure in hindsight they say, okay, yeah, it was a flop, but I'm really glad I made it because there is a cult following. It was his debut and it flopped, but luckily he kept going. He didn't take it as anything because, he had complete creative control. And hopefully the studios and, people who have that happen to them and flopped, don't take that to heart and not move forward in making another movie. Because now, look, he's doing all what he's doing now. But yeah, I just wish he would come back to it. Just because it was a flop, though, doesn't mean you don't have to do a sequel, just because you're, high in the sky now. Come on, dude. Like, now you got all that money. Now you can really make a really beefy, expensive ass horror movie. Do it.
I'm with you. I think that would be awesome to see James Gunn return to horror. You bring up an excellent point.
It's not like he has to stay there. He can do all of it at the same time. Do one a decade, or a superhero
horror movie. would you go? You're not a superhero fan, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't mind watching them. Yeah, I'm not gonna put it on my schedule and go watch it. Like I do actually want to see Blue Beetle, and I've liked other superhero movies, but yeah, it's not on my like to-do list.
But you might be
but they are
quicker to
fun.
check horror superhero movies, right?
Yeah,
There's not,
like if it
there's
was
not a lot of
dark.
those. There's not a lot of
Yeah,
those.
like Death
Like,
Note kind of isn't really superhero, but yeah.
yeah,
What else?
yeah. The Crow, I guess you might sort of
Okay.
put in there. But again, even with that, it's not like there's not an insane amount of blood and horror elements per se. That might make for a fun topic, though. Now that I'm thinking of it, but then again, it's tough. Yeah, how many horror superhero movies are out there? I don't know. James Gunn, get to it.
There you go. Something that needs to get filled and needs to get filled.
And put some cool creatures in there that are really gross and have tentacles popping out and all kinds of body horror. Lots and lots of body horror. I'm done.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Well, I didn't necessarily mean for you to pick, the grossest creatures, but no,
I
think you knew I would probably go that direction. You're like, well, let me just go that direction.
No, I had no idea which way. I love your picture. You have great pictures. I found myself sort of struggling because like there's another stop motion creature, like Medusa, for example. But now that's not really horror. It's more of like a fantasy swords and sandals kind of movie where we talk about but the Medusa character too is like another fun one, So like, and I think that certainly works as horror at least. But for the purposes of this discussion, I think I was like tried to stick a little closer to just things that were strictly in horror. So that's how I ended up with my picks.
For sure. Yes. Well, awesome. That I think completes our countdown. But before we sign off, what are your plans for October for your channel or November or whatever you got coming up?
Well, at the moment, I am working on a review for some 70s horror, the 1978's The Evil. So that's going to be coming up probably next. I have a poll up on my site right now. If you guys are watching, you can go and check out, and you can still vote as of right now on which Twilight Zone episode you'd like to see me review next. It's we'll see which episode it's going to be, but I did try to put Twilight Zone episodes that lean a little more on the spooky side and scary side, so that no matter what people pick, it'll go in that direction and be on brand for October. So yeah, there we go. So,
are you doing anything fun in real life for Halloween?
In real life, we're gonna take the kids trick or treating. I love doing that. Yeah. Trick or treating all the way. And if I could bust, let me see if I get it right here. I got my Twilight Zone mask.
Oh snap! I was gonna ask about costumes next.
That's from last year, but I think I'm gonna be rocking it again one more year. Why not?
That's fine. I kind of want to do my Joker makeup again from last year.
That was pretty cool. That was very memorable. That was awesome. Yeah, why not?
I want to do it better this time, way better, like update it, like 2.0.
Hey, there you go. All right, so cool, fun stuff to look forward to.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm still figuring out my Halloween costumes for October. But I've got my lineup coming up for my next Spooktober, my third Spooktober. So keep an eye out for that, y'all. I've got a narration coming up, a reaction video, a true crime video coming up. I'll be talking a whole lot about Saw next month, and I kind of mentioned it in my last video, but I am so sad because Saw is one of my favorite franchises, and it's being released when I won't be in town, so I won't be able to watch it right away. So my review of it will not be coming out until Friday the 13th, which is cool, I guess, anyway, because it's on Friday the 13th. All right. So you can look out for that. And then I'll be doing a live chat with some folks and a ranking video. So y'all can keep an eye out for that. And yes, I guess that about wraps it up. Well, thank you again so much for being here. You are the best. And so glad we didn't wait a year to do this again.
You're the best. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's nonstop. I love it. I'll be back tomorrow. So let's.
Awesome. Sounds good. We'll have to think of another topic right quick.
real quick. All right.
Well, thank you to the chat as well. Thank you to everybody for being here. D, Dice, John, Katie, everybody. I appreciate y'all. And until next time, Stardust. Peace.